Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling one of the really big old scientific myths.
Yeah, the idea that the adult brain is just static, fixed.
Exactly. Unchangeable. For, centuries, that was the dominant view in medicine, in psychology.
If you had a major injury as an adult, or maybe, a lifelong learning issue, or even a bad habit.
The thinking was basically, tough luck.
Right.
The hardware's set.
But that whole concept, the brain is this machine with fixed wires, it's just obsolete now.
And that brings us to our source material for this deep dive.
Right. Dr. Norman Doidge's book from 2007, The Brain That Changes Itself. It was a pretty landmark.
Absolutely. It's packed with science, but also these amazing patient stories.
And they all point to one thing. The brain is neuroplastic.
Meaning it can actually reorganize itself, form new connections.
Yeah.
All through your life.
Yeah.
So our mission today isn't just to define that word, neuroplasticity. We want to really get into the stories, the mechanics of it.
Yeah, the rules for how this constant rewiring actually works.
It's like a scientific roadmap for hope, really. Confirmation that your brain is always adapting based on how you use it, how you focus. Okay, let's dive right into the core idea. The big takeaway from Doidge's work.
The foundation.
Yeah. The adult brain isn't finished. It's plastic. Actively changing.
It's not just about your genes setting everything in stone. Your experiences, your behaviors, and maybe most importantly, where you put your focus.
That all physically rewires the brain.
And it's not just some abstract psychological thing. We're talking tangible, physical, structural changes.
Like the stories Doidge tells about stroke recovery, those are incredible.
Oh, yeah. Take the woman with severe brain damage, lost the use of one side of her body.
Right.
She didn't just, wait passively. She went through this really intensive therapy. CIMT.
Constraint-induced movement therapy. Okay, that sounds intense is the word. What does that actually involve? It sounds a bit backwards.
It is completely counterintuitive. They immobilize the good limb.
So tie down the working arm, for instance.
Exactly. And force the patient to use only the injured arm for hours. Every day. The goal is super intense repetition, really focus attention on that damaged function.
You're basically forcing the brain to engage those damaged pathways over and over.
Right. It's like the neurons are shouting, hey, we need help over here. And then other undamaged parts of the brain start to pitch in.
They take over the jobs of the damaged areas.
Yeah, they literally build new pathways, stronger ones, functional ones, to control that limb. It's like building a bypass on a highway.
So it's not passive healing, it's active, demanding work, driven by attention and sheer necessity. That's amazing evidence for recovering lost function. But what about adaptability beyond recovery? Is there evidence that the brain can do jobs it wasn't even built for originally?
Oh, definitely. This work gets really wild. Sensory substitution.
Okay.
Doidge talks about work with devices allowing blind people to see using their tongue.
Wait, using your tongue? How? That sounds like science fiction.
It does. So a camera captures an image, right? And that image gets translated into electrical signals.
Okay.
On a little grid placed on the person's tongue.
So the tongue feels electrical tingles that represent the image. How does the brain make sense of that as vision?
Well, here's the mind-bending part. The visual cortex, the part of your brain that usually handles input from your eyes, it doesn't fundamentally care if the signal is light or touch or, vibration.
It just cares about the pattern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Patterns. If the electrical buzzes on the tongue consistently match patterns of light and shadow out there in the world.
The visual cortex just learns the new language.
It reroutes its processing power. It learns to interpret the tactile data from the tongue as a picture.
Wow. The hardware is way more flexible than we thought.
Totally. And you see the same thing with deaf individuals learning to interpret sound through vibration sensors on their skin.
So the touch centers of the brain start processing vibrations as language or music.
The brain just adapts to the input it gets, if it's consistent.
Incredible.
And this map rewriting power isn't just for external senses. It applies inside, too. Like phantom limb pain.
Right, where someone feels terrible pain in a limb that's not even there anymore.
Yeah, agonizing pain.
So if the limb is gone, the pain has to be purely a brain thing, right? Like a deeply learned neural habit.
Precisely. It's an entrenched pattern. And Doidge talks about using mirror therapy.
How does that work?
You position a mirror so the person sees the reflection of their existing limb where the missing one should be.
So it tricks the brain visually.
Exactly. It creates the illusion that the missing limb is there, and maybe it's moving normally or it's pain-free. This visual feedback lets the person start to mentally unmap or overwrite those stuck pain signals.
So even something as visceral as chronic pain can be treated as a malleable neural pattern, not just a fixed physical reality.
It shows how powerful these learned patterns are, but also that they can be unlearned.
Okay, so if we can unmap a physical sensation like that, what does this mean for purely mental stuff? Cognitive patterns, like learning difficulties.
Well, it connects straight to education and developmental challenges. Doidge shows how specific intensive mental exercises helped kids with dyslexia.
How so?
They saw dramatic improvements in their reading speed, their processing ability. And these aren't just like clever teaching tricks.
They're actually changing the brain's wiring for language.
Yes. They're targeted cognitive programs designed to physically improve how the neural networks involved in reading actually function. It's like retooling the brain's internal hardware for language.
This is all incredibly hopeful, but it sounds like it takes serious effort, repetition, focus.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the kind of operating rules for this. If the brain is always changing, how do we steer that change?
And the big rule seems to be use it or lose it.
That's the core principle, yeah. It's the mechanism behind all these stories. Scientifically, you hear terms like synaptic pruning and strengthening.
Neurons that fire together, wire together, that old saying.
Exactly. If you consistently use a specific pathway, whether it's practicing violin, learning French, or even defaulting to an anxious thought.
That pathway gets stronger. Physically
reinforced, the connections between those neurons get thicker, signal transfer gets faster, more efficient. That connection survives. It thrives.
And the flip side, if you stop using a skill or thinking a certain way,
those pathways weaken. They literally get pruned away by the brain to save resources. You forget the language, the violin skills get rusty, maybe that cognitive flexibility decreases.
Which has huge implications for education, rehab, mental health, everything.
You are literally shaping the physical structure of your brain by what you do and what you pay attention to, moment by moment.
So this completely blows up that old idea about aging, right? That cognitive decline is just inevitable after a certain age.
That myth is shattered, yeah. Change is possible at any age. Doidge cites research comparing mental exercise to physical exercise.
How so?
Well, they found seniors engaging in specific, structured mental workouts, not just, casual crosswords, but exercises designed to boost things like processing speed or memory.
They actually got better, measurably.
Significantly better. Real gains in processing speed, things you can actually quantify and see, approach younger levels.
So it's like muscles. If you stop challenging your brain, those abilities weaken.
But if you introduce new focused challenges, the brain responds. It strengthens those networks. It adapts.
Okay, here's where it gets really mind-bending for me. The role of pure thought. Consciousness itself.
The idea that the mind can shape the brain.
Yeah, that feels like the ultimate level of control.
Well, if you look at the neurochemistry, focused thought, things like visualization, cognitive behavioral therapy, they can intentionally reshape brain circuits.
Like with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder.
That's a prime example.
Yeah.
OCD often involves this powerful compulsive loop. It gets wired into the basal ganglia, a really primitive habit-forming part of the brain.
So the urges feel automatic, deeply ingrained. How can someone consciously fight that?
They learn to use the prefrontal cortex, the higher-level rational part of the brain.
The executive control center.
Right. Patients learn to recognize the obsessive thought or the compulsive urge as a false message from the brain, a glitch in the wiring.
Okay.
And then, through focused effort, repeated cognitive reframing, they consciously choose not to act on the compulsion.
It's not just willpower then, it's like retraining.
It is retraining. This intentional redirection does two things. It strengthens the alternative, non-compulsive pathways. And crucially, it strengthens the prefrontal cortex's ability to inhibit those lower automatic urges.
So you're literally teaching your brain new instructions, strengthening the stop button until it's stronger than the go signal.
You got it. You're rewiring the control system.
And that focus on repetition, on strengthening pathways, it leads directly to the next big takeaway, which can be a bit sobering.
Habits shape the brain.
Yeah. Those repetitive thoughts, repetitive actions, good or bad, they carve these super highways in your brain.
Think about driving home. After a while, you don't even think about the turns, do you?
No, it's totally automatic.
That pathway is incredibly efficient, but that also makes it hard to change course. And that same efficiency applies to, well, less helpful things.
Like addictions, deep anxiety patterns, chronic pain.
Exactly. They can all become these powerful, optimized neural routes. The brain is amazing at learning, at becoming efficient, but it doesn't judge what it's learning.
So if you practice worrying,
your brain gets really, really good at worrying. It builds a worry superhighway.
Which brings us to the dark side of plasticity. It's not all good news.
It's definitely a double-edged sword. Just as you can wire in healthy habits and skills.
You can wire in destructive patterns just as effectively.
Right. Doidge talks about this quite directly. For instance, how repetitive exposure to things like internet pornography can physically reshape neural pathways.
Creating dependency.
Altering expectations.
Yeah, wiring in these very strong reward circuits based on constant novelty and stimulation. And those circuits can strengthen incredibly fast, making them very hard to break.
So the lesson is, if you're not consciously directing your brain's plasticity, your environment, your automatic reactions, they'll direct it for you. And maybe not in ways you want. Awareness is key.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's touch on critiques. Doidge's book is hugely influential, inspiring, but it's not without its critics, right?
True. The main point critics raise is the heavy reliance on case studies.
Anecdotes.
Yeah. While the stories are powerful, compelling proof that change can happen, critics argue they might perhaps overstate how easily or universally these dramatic results can be achieved, especially in very severe or chronic conditions.
So it shows what's possible, biologically speaking.
Exactly. It provides the proof of concept. But the book isn't really a step-by-step how-to manual.
Right. It highlights that profound change usually requires that intensity, that focused effort we talked about with stroke recovery.
It's hard work. But the crucial point is, it is possible. The potential is there. Hashtag outro.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big message for you listening right now? Maybe you're trying to learn something new, break a habit.
The core idea, really, from Doidge and all the research since, is that your brain is always adaptable.
And real structural change, physical, mental, behavioral, it's possible at any age.
But it takes that intentional, focused, repeated action. You have to actively build the new pathways you want.
The most powerful lesson, I think, is just that simple statement. Your brain is not a finished product.
It's a work in progress. You have way more influence over your own cognitive future than we ever used to think.
So if every focused thought, every deliberate action is literally a form of mental exercise, strengthening some connections, weakening others, we'll leave you with this question to ponder.
How is the quality of your attention, day-to-day, moment-to-moment, shaping the future architecture of your brain?
What kind of mental superhighways are you building right now?